Welcome to our distinguished speaker, Sachin Aroskar, a very dear friend and a great internal auditor, and also to all the participants who are attending on Zoom as well as on YouTube. We bring yet another episode or webinar on Analytics Wednesday series. And today's topic is Idea Analytics, a winning formula for internal audit. And what is more important is practical case studies. So Sachin Aroskar today, though he could just get up and start speaking anytime because of his in-depth knowledge and experience of last 30 years, 25, 30 years, but he has put in a lot of efforts to speak to all of us for 45 minutes, so he's prepared himself well so that the delivery to us is good, and we imbibe all the practical case studies in a distilled form, in essence form, so that it is useful to each one of us. So I am also looking forward to his talk today. Coming to Sama, of course, we are in audit analytics. We are number one in the country, and we are dealing with almost all the government departments, internal departments, NGOs, chartered accountant firms, and everybody uses IDEA as a analytics tool, the flagship product. And of course, there is a Smart Exporter, which is a direct connect to SAP. There is LSR, which is client server, continuous control monitoring for auditors or finance people. There are working papers for external auditors, audit templates, and so on, and solutions, e-learning modules, and so on, which I speak about every time. Without wasting much time, all of us would like to listen to Sachin and his practical case studies, which is most important today. So I'll formally introduce him to all of us. He's a senior finance professional with more than 25 years experience in the field of accounts, commercial, internal audit, and risk. Over 2.5 decades, he's worked in varied industries like textile, chemicals, industrial products, hydrocarbon, upstream, midstream, downstream, and real estate. Now, he has been associated with internal audit for more than 15 years, and he has led internal audit assignments in India and overseas in the oil and gas exploration, production, refining, and marketing domain for offshore exploration blocks as well as refineries. A difficult industry. I think he has spent a lot of time there. He has worked at head commercial for overseas group of exploration assets in the Middle East across 3 countries for more than 4 years. He's a commerce graduate, a cost accountant, and has completed 2 certificate courses, one in advanced E&P accounting from MDT International Scottish Training Institute in hydrocarbon domain, and a management development program at IIM Bangalore. And his current role, I think what is important is Sachin is working as head internal audit at Lodha Group, which is India's largest real estate developer by sales. Also, of course, he uses IDEA for analytics in his internal department. So over to you, Sachin.
Thank you so much, Jeep, for these kind words. I would request Jairam to allow me to share the screen. I think, yes, I am the host, so I will just share my presentation from slide number 1.
Yeah, and I think before Sachin goes into the slides, I would do an informal introduction to him also, that I met Sachin 25, 30 years back when he was an internal auditor, and I was also starting my practice. So almost 30 years back, and that's the length of the journey I think we have both undertaken as internal auditors.
Thanks so
Sachin,
much.
Please.
Thanks so much. Very kind of you, Deepji, for 2 things. One is for all the kind words that you used to introduce me, and also for giving me this opportunity to speak at such a valuable forum. I'm humbly aware that I'm speaking to the collective participants who are wiser than me and who are more experienced than me. You see, so though initially it made me a little nervous, considering to the kind of august gathering that I'm speaking to, it also gives me a comfort in the sense the crowd that I'm talking to, being more wise and being more experienced than me, I do not have to do a lot of hard work. If I introduce the topics and the live case studies in a little detail, most of the participants are going to quickly understand the things that I am saying and the things I am not saying. So with that kind of confidence and a positive frame of mind, let us begin. A very necessary disclaimer before we dwell deeper into the subject, that the views which are expressed in today's presentation are entirely mine, and they do not represent any organization or body corporate. The examples that I have selected are, of course, from the live industry. They are live examples, but they are basically generic in nature, and they should not be related to a particular company A or particular company B. I mean, the topic being case studies, we will have to look at data, but we have kept them completely industry agnostic and company agnostic. So that this has to be kept in mind. The examples are serving limited purpose of explaining the underlying concept. So with this background, let us go into the presentation. In order to make the subject a little lighter, what I have tried to do is I have inundated the presentation with different quotes. Today, everything is available on the net, and these quotes, of course, also have been found on the net. But I spent some time in picking up those quotes which are very apt for today's subject, which are very brief, because we all know brevity is the soul of wit. So if you want to make a statement, be brief. So these one-liner anecdotes you will find, and they would sort of make us understand the importance of the subject. Also, will make the discussion lively. I would like to wrap it up, the entire presentation, in about 50 minutes, and the remaining 10 minutes are, of course, for the question, answers, and general chat. So the first one is data beats emotions. I think we all agree. We as auditors, those who are at a senior level, those who are heading the department, face one prelim and one final exam every quarter. Prelim is the presentation to the management, to the CEO, MD, and the CFO, in presence of all the senior management. And the main exam is the audit committee. At both these places, emotions at times run high. And when the emotions run high, and generally emotions from the high and mighty sometimes run very high, what is the countervailing tool that auditor has? If he has right data, right analytics, rightly inferred, and right message, then my personal experience has been data beats emotions more than once. So far, am I being audible to the audience? Is there any problem? Is there any kind of a noise?
Absolutely audible, Sachin.
Thank you. So this page basically will tell us the basics of data analytics. I'm not going to spend much time on this because none of us here need any repetition of this. Just a simple process flowchart. What is data analytics? It's basically explore, understand, clean, query or analyze basis line of inquiry. What is it that you try to find out is going to decide what kind of a query or analysis you would like to do on the data. So analysis basically is translated into query in the idea analogy. And infer, right data, right query, right output will give right inference. Otherwise, inference could sometimes be horribly wrong. Is a discipline of extracting insights from data, includes collection, analysis, organization, interpretation, fine. Done by applying different tools and techniques on data to unearth trends and patterns hidden within the large data set, which can provide vital insights, which help take robust business decisions. Analytics has become increasingly important in all parts of the enterprise, including audit. So though we are talking primarily for audit today, data analytics has been accepted and absorbed by enterprise before audit. We have been a little late in doing this. Yeah. So in our presentation, we have one example where how enterprise uses data analytics, and we have remaining examples how auditors use it. And why we need to know how enterprise uses data analytics? Because we should know how ahead they are in terms of analyzing data, understanding it, inferring from it, so that when we do our data analytics, we need to know that we are not talking to the novices of the world. We are presenting our findings to those who also use data analytics majorly. So we need to be aware of this. So in all parts of enterprise, including audit, as a means for analyzing huge amount of data for optimizing business processes and improving decision making and business results. Yeah. So decision making and business results, everybody knows. I'll just spend a couple of sentences on optimizing business processes. It has been my experience, and of course, I'm sure your experience also must be the same, is that a very complex business that we all are dealing in. The business is very complex. It many a times results into very complex processes, procedures, and SOPs. You see, because the business we are dealing in is so complex that we want to capture every detail, every minute thing which can go wrong, and in the process make a very, very complex SOP which nobody wants to follow. If we do a very thorough data analytics to find out which are my 4 or 3 big enemies which I want to tackle by writing a process or a SOP, and by the law of I would say Pareto analysis, or by materialization, if I leave or decide to live with the last 5%, my processes actually simplify. Please understand this, my friends. A complex business can thrive by adopting to simplified processes, procedures, and SOPs, which people will follow. Just like if I speak a simple language, people will be interested. If I try to bombard you with so much of English and so much of complicated things, you would probably think that this man doesn't know much, trying to sort of wail by using a lot of language. So simplicity is the key. And data analytics tells us what are my primary adversaries, which I need to tackle, and hence they will help me simplify the processes, which in turn will help me optimize business processes and improving decision making and business results. Thank you. We'll go to the next. So if we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, then I would like to go with my opinion. I mean, simple, isn't it? Well, data analytics process, I'll spend not more than 2-3 minutes on this. So identify data requirement. Yes. Then collect data. Yeah. Basis the requirement, start collecting the data. Next is data cleaning. Very important step. Very, very important. Very practical. Most of the friends and colleagues who are listening to this conversation, or who will listen subsequently in whatever form, will agree that large companies, for the structuring purposes and all, you have multiple mergers, demergers, acquisitions, JDAs, and whatnot. As a result, our underlying data gets killed. It gets blurred, because every time I do a merger, I am sort of uploading my all earlier business data like purchase orders, purchase requisitions, sales orders into the new company. In this process, a lot of data uncleaning happens, or rather a lot of data noise happens. The simplest example I can think of and give is, I have a PO for 1 crore. There has already been a service done for 50 lakh rupees. I have to only upload remaining 50 lakhs. Most of the times in most of the ERPs, the entire 1 crore gets uploaded, and there is a deeper sign there to say that 50 crores used, 50 crores not used. So if you just add up, it is very much possible that the entire 1 crore comes as your PO. Whereas what you need to remember is the unused PO is only 50 lakhs. This was just example which came to my mind as talking. The important point is, unless you clean the data that you are trying to analyze, you can go horribly wrong. And in this entire circle, if there are 3 important processes which take maximum time, in my understanding and my limited exposure, it is data cleaning, followed by data analysis, because we generally, please remember this, we generally have our assumptions and then try to collect data to evidence it. For example, I may make an assumption that X and X person is already making some good money by connivance with somebody else. And I'm trying to find the data which will support that and make me, yes, gotcha. If I keep my preconceived notions out and purely analyze the data without having assumptions, data sometimes speaks a very different fact. I will have to keep my assumptions on my head. So data cleaning, data analysis are two very important steps. If data is clean and if it is analyzed with a correct line of inquiry, interpretation is going to be easy because data is loudly speak to you in clear terms. Data visualization is basically, your business intelligence, your BI, your Tableau, how you make it palatable. You see, it is basically making it palatable. Just a funny thing, I'm giving this presentation from my kitchen. I'm at home today and working from home. So, why I chose kitchen to give a presentation is because this is where the data gets generated. It looks like a food in the kitchen. But if I want to present it properly, I have to present it in the dining room with all the garnish and all that. But kitchen is always more important because what you make in kitchen, only can you present in the dining room. Torture the data and it will confess to anything. Very aptly said by whoever. I like this sentence. The only word of caution is that do not overkill. In the process of torture, if you kill the data, then probably it will not speak anything. I mean, simply put, anything over analysis is paralysis. So do a proper analysis. To an extent, it has given you all the important things. And also, for auditors, one thing which has to be remembered is detailed analysis is important, but speed is also important. Sometimes we do so much of detailing that the timeline is lost, the bus has gone, and then we are there with all the charts and this, etc. If the presentation is not completed on time and not delivered where it has to be delivered, then the rest of the detailing is sometimes useless. Well, let's now jump into the C. The first example which I thought I should share is how enterprises use
Sachin, you could make your screen full screen.
Yes, I will do that. Is this good?
Absolutely fine.
Thank you. So with the first screen, basically tells how enterprising or how enterprise is using data analytics. As I said, let us look at how enterprise uses it before looking at how audit uses it or should use it. This picture basically is a picture of a cement plant. But I would like to relate it to a refinery because my experience comes from refinery. So please do some modification. The two plants that you see in this picture, let's assume they are refineries. Yeah. Then the two warehouses, let us look at their tank farms, or they are the fuel storage depots. Yeah. And customers are akin to ROs, retail outlets, what commonly are known as petrol pumps. Now, most of you will know that large refiners of the world, large private refiners in India also, they have one large refinery, yeah, 20 MTPA, 30 MTPA, going up to 60 MTPA. MTPA is million tons per annum. It's the nameplate capacity of the refinery. So you have a large complex refinery at one location in country. You have what is called as tank farms or depots, say maximum at 15 to 20 different locations within the country, which are your secondary feeds, from refinery or other primary feeds. Sorry, from refinery, the products either wet or dry come to these tank farms or depots. And your secondary feed is your network of ROs, retail outlets. A large refiner would have anything between 1,000 retail outlets to 5,000 retail outlets. Yeah. So let's look at the transportation model. One refinery, which is manufacturing the products, 15 to 20 tank farms or depots to which these products will be transported, 2,500 to 3,000 retail outlets to which they have to be fed at different frequency. give you an example. I live near Shivaji Park. So at a Shivaji Park junction area, there is a HP petrol pump with a very high consumption and throughput. So probably I have to feed that kind of a retail outlet twice a day. I may have a retail outlet at Chembur Junction, which has to be fed once in 3 days. There could be a retail outlet on the outskirts of Mumbai, which is very important because it has to be always stocked. But the frequency of feeding could be once in 15 days. Fourth complexity is the logistics that I can deploy. As oil and gas people would know, I use sea, rail, road, and pipeline as my logistics availabilities for feeding the depots as well as the retail outlets. So now the problem is seen in its full complexity. One refinery, 15 depots or tank farms, 2,500 petrol pumps at length and breadth of the country to be fed by a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4 or a difference of that. I can feed a petrol pump via a tank farm using rail and road, or using sea and rail, or using direct pipeline. Then I have to remember which of these 1,500 to 2,500 ROs have to be fed twice a day, which once in a week, which once in 2 weeks, then which products, so that my contribution is getting maximized. I have to only sell those products where my contribution is getting maximized. For the simplicity, I have only kept 2 products which the world consumes fastest: gasoline and gas oil, more commonly known as petrol and diesel. However, please remember, my today's fastest selling petrol pump 3 years down the line could be selling slow, and my average petrol pump, which is at Taloja Panvel Highway, which only sells, say, 5 kiloliters in a week, which is a small consumption today, may sell 50 kiloliters in next 3 weeks or next 3 years, when a lot of development happens in that area. But if I have to keep that RO alive, I have to feed it in such a way that it should never be stocked out. Otherwise, competition will take over. Which means I have to also consider today's demand and future demand, and accordingly keep my outages minimum. Sorry if I have taken too long, but are you understanding the full complexity of the problem that I have? It's a logistical problem. We have not even got into the commercials yet. It's just a logistical problem. My friends, this problem cannot be effectively solved without employing a complex transportation model, which has to look at the data and analyze it very, very well, because data is available at all these points. There's data on daily how much I produce, how much I store, at what frequency do I turn my inventory, at what frequency do I turn my inventory at my retail outlets, what is the increasing or decreasing trend of consumption. This data is available. Unless I analyze it with my correct line of inquiry, I would nowhere be coming close in solving this transportation problem effectively. And without adequate data, without right data analytics, and without right tool like an IDEA, you will never be able to solve this. I'll take a second of break, and somebody can please tell me, is this making sense? Are we talking sense, or we are going off the track? Debji, could you please help me?
I think this is excellent. I think please continue, Sachin. This is excellent.
Thank you. Because what happens is in this forum, I'm only talking, and I sometimes don't get the feel as to whether people are liking it, whether am I making to make a sense. So from that perspective, I just wanted your this. Thank you so much for your feedback. If it is going off the cuff, please let me know, because that is also equally important.
Sure, Sachin.
Thank you. So this is an example how enterprise uses data analytics. It's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. I like this sentence. This has been said by one very famous person who's a living person. I mean, he is no more living, but a real person. I would request Jairam to sort of take a poll as to, please don't go to Google, otherwise Google has all the answers. Who said this? And what was the profession of the person who said this? Take a quick poll. We'll get the result at the end of the presentation, and Deepji would recognize the winner of this poll. Yeah. So let us look at now the actual case study of audit, how audit does data analytics. Example I have taken from one of the industries that are familiar to me. This is an industry where basically we do sales direct or through channel partners or brokers, as we know them. Now, it's a large company having a huge sale in terms of units sold. It has 6,000 to sometimes 8,000 units sold in a year. Fair amount of units get sold through brokers, fair amount gets sold directly. So one can say, for the assumption of simplicity, 50-50. Like if I'm selling 8,000 units, residential units a year, 4,000 get sold through the retail channel partners and 4,000 get sold directly. Now, as all of you know, if I sell a residential unit through a channel partner or a broker, I have to pay brokerage. Brokerage varies between 2% to 3% depending on what are the schemes, etc. Sometimes it can go up to 4% in a tough market, in a tough geography. This is a straight hit to the bottom line. So what is the purpose? What is the result I'm looking at? Are my direct sales getting wrongly booked as sales through brokers? Simple. Now, how do I do it? How does data analytics help me doing that? We have a process which I have written on the left-hand side. There is a process to basically identify a sale through direct and a sale through broker. So I have various direct channels. I have pre-sales. I have my website. I have my contact centers where people make outbound calls. I have my marketing campaigns. I have my social media campaigns. All these channels are my direct channels. The customers won through them are my direct sales. The last channel is a customer won through a channel partner is my sale through a broker. In my first channel, 4 channels, I don't have to pay a brokerage. All the profit is mine. But in the 5th, I have to pay 2 to 4% brokerage. And hence my endeavor always as auditor is to ensure that no direct sale goes to a broker, either by mistake or by mischief. Problem defined? Now, how has, like, this is one example I would be happy to give that idea has changed our life in this. How? Earlier, we used to do this through a lot of sifting of data and a lot of analytics through Excel, which used to be cumbersome and exhausting because of the huge volumes that we deliver. However, through idea, we wrote a script, a simple script rather, wherein what I did is I basically divided my data into a CP sales and all sales other than CP. So I have 2 fields, CP and others. So what I do is I run the CP, I know how much has gone through a CP. For others, I basically, because I have the data with me, wherein every person who comes to through whichever channel that I am deploying, he will share 2 to 3 things. He'll share his mobile number, he'll share his email ID. Sometimes he'll share the address, but address we cannot compel people to share, but sometimes they share the address, sometimes they share the first things. So for once I have this database, CP and others, in both these databases, I have all these 3 items. 2 definitely, mobile number as well as email ID. If I have address, so much the better. From others, I will run through this data and script and find out that either 2 or 3 of these variables which are run in the data, do I have the same variables also sitting in the CP database. Let's take my example, Sachin Aroskar, phone number so and so, email ID so and so. I come in the database others. Do I also come in the database CP? Ideally, I should not come because this is a mutual exclusive database. But in practical business, it can happen. How can it happen? That I have come directly, first time, I visited the site directly and I have introduced myself. But subsequently, somebody told me, sir, मैं आपको घर दिखाता हूँ, ये करता हूँ. I then was introduced to the CP and again appeared to the same site through CP. So this happens practically. But my procedures tell me that if I have introduced myself directly without a CP, then I have a cooling period of 1 month to 6 months, before which my sales cannot be taken as a CP sales. So then I compare these two databases with the same credentials. Then I go to the names. I use fuzzy logic. Yeah. Sachin Aroskar with a different spelling or some similar name. I run it through fuzzy logic to see whether the same person is showing himself as two different persons, either by mistake or mischief. Same with the CP. So basically, I'm trying to find out the person who appears to have come through CP, whether he had directly come earlier and whether he is within the cooling period, so that his sale should not be given to the CP or his sale should not be recognized as a CP sale. A very live, practical example which we have run and which has saved us a lot of time and a lot of money. Practical example. Making sense, my friends? Making relevance of real life case studies from data analytics for auditors?
Yes, yes, Sachin.
As a result of this case, what has happened is, effective auditing also automatically improves the entire ecosystem. Like in the first quarter, when I got these examples, I presented it to the MAC and said, we got 6 cases of duplicate. The sale should have been direct, but going to CP. In the next MAC, the cases came down to 4. In the third MAC, when we still had 1 or 2 cases, the bosses got irritated and said, why this is happening? When the audit is again and again bringing it to the notice, why our systems are still lax? Why has to audit give me more and more examples? If they have told me the problem once, twice, thrice, am I not good enough to fix it, or I continuously want audit to supervise this? In the fourth MAC or the fourth quarter, there was not a single case, despite me and my team breaking our head. My friend, the ecosystem reacted. They do not want to hear the same problem from the auditors again. The limited point I'm saying is, with large data analytics, when you highlight issues to the forum, the system takes notices and corrects itself. In the living and good organizations, this regularly happens. This is a problem because you have to work that much more harder for getting your next set of internal audit observations, because low-hanging and middle-hanging fruits get plucked fast. But at the same time, it's a good sign for the organization, and it also makes the top management happy, because audit is not only pointing out the mistakes, it is also eradicating the routinely found mistakes. It is taking the organizational processes to the next level. Most of the world will make decisions by either guessing or using their gut. They will either be lucky or wrong. We should say is that once upon a time, gut played a great role, but today gut still plays a role, because that's why experience gets paid higher and experience gets recognized well. But the gut has to be backed up by sound and robust data. Only gut will take you to better. Next example, again, let us take it from something which I have seen from our industry. This example is particularly close to my heart because it has busted a few myths. The myths which we all thought, were: 1, small per unit costs are generally small cost and hence did not get much of management time. Second myth was bulk SMS, which every industry that I know, every B2C industry that I know deploys in the large scale, is the cheapest source of marketing or promotion. I also believed in to two myths that I'm talking about. Until we actually were stumbled against the data and the reality of it. So on a particular year, we were looking at the entire sales expense side. Now I'm talking of a large company whose turnover is about 8,000 crores. So the company has a sales expense budget other than the manpower of say 220 crores. Sales budget of 220 crores. I'm looking at all the expenditure items. One of the smart team members tells me, sir, aisa karte hain. Let's look at the items which are smallest at the unit level. UOM is the smallest, but the expenditure is beyond the threshold. So I'm looking at the smallest denominator, and expenditure is say more than 1 crore in that year. When we defined the query and we ran that, the first thing which it threw out is my smallest denominator is SMS, 7.5 paise per unit. But I have spent something like 4 crores on my total SMS for that year. The first wisdom came out of the huge pile of data. We said, let us run another thing. Let us see those expenses which have gone up by the maximum margin year after year. Every cost goes up in the inflationary world. Let us look at the top 10 increases in that year. Surprise, surprise, in that also SMS figured up. My last 3 years combination told me that the SMS cost has gone up from 7.5 paise to 8.5 paise to 11 paise. Year on year, it's a growth of more than 15%, which is very high in the current benign inflation. So I had two things pointing out at me. My SMS cost at unit level has gone up by 15 to 20%, however small it looks. Number two, I'm spending a huge amount of 4.5 to 5 crores in a year on SMSs alone. In the last year in which I had spent that kind of amount, the SMS cost was about 10 paise per unit. 10 paise per unit, 5 crores spent on SMS. How many SMSs? Not a difficult math to solve. 50 crore SMSs. In a particular year, I sent 50 crore SMSs to my customers, thinking that I'm doing the best promotion in the world. Well, beyond this, the story becomes very interesting and colorful. Not much of it I will be able to share on this forum. What I will definitely like to share is this basic data and the data wisdom drops opened Pandora's box. Then everybody was interested. Then we took this data to the national head of sales. We spoke to him. He was surprised because we asked a simple question. In a country with 130 crores population, we are sending 50 crore SMS in a year, where even 50 crores smartphones do not exist, where the product we are selling is not even thought to be bought by more than 10 crore people. And we are talking of a small geography, and we are talking of whole. So where did these 50 crore SMS go? Did they really go? Because you have paid for them. So who got them? Well, because the topic is regarding data analytics, I will not go much beyond this. But believe me, friends, this particular exercise that we did resulted in a blast. Because all the weaknesses of the systems were unearthed. For example, we learned to our dismay that the quality of the databases we were using were extremely poor. We were not doing our contracting right. We were not making the service provider agree to deliver the SMSs to the end customer before I pay him. The delivery was conveniently understood that from my server, it is getting pushed to the other person's server. That was delivery. It helped me at all, not at all. To give you an example, I want to send an SMS to Deepji Singhal, which means that the delivery is success only when Deepji sees that SMS in his smartphone. Here, I use Jio, Deepji uses, say, Vodafone. My server pushing the SMS to Vodafone server was considered delivery, and I paid for it. That delivery was of no use to me because it did not deliver to where it was supposed to go. This is one example. This was one lacuna. The other was the database was so poor that 30% of the SMSs were 11 digit. 30% of the SMSs were 11 digit. They were outright spurious SMSs. I mean, spurious numbers. So many of them were landlines. So many of them were blocked as DND. And so on and so forth. Again, this happened only once. A good organization will never allow it to repeat. You see, I'll only stop by saying that that particular year our SMS cost was 5 crores and we were doing X level of promotion. The immediate next year, my SMS cost was 45 lakhs and I was doing a better promotion by correcting some of the underlying errors. 5 crores to 45 lakhs, 4.5 crores straight away saved, system got corrected, better results were achieved, and entire underlying ecosystem corrected itself. Now, anybody says bulk SMS, the boss stands up and asks more questions than the audit would normally ask. Making sense, friends? This is a real life data I'm discussing. I'm not talking too much about the company and all that, but this is real life. Making sense?
Absolutely, Sachin.
I think for the paucity of time, on the last example, I will not speak much. I will quickly wrap it up and then we can go for the question answers. As this particular example showed us, the goal is to turn data into information. We had a lot of data, but it was not giving us any information. And that information basically has to turn into an insight. So the insight which I have shared is, number one, it's a myth to believe that whatever is the cheapest at the unit cost level is the cheapest for my company as an expense. It's one big myth. Second big myth is bulk SMS is the cheapest source of advertising or promotion. It is provided, and that provided is important, it is used wisely, used in moderation, used with the right discretion, and used with service providers who use excellent target database. If you use these four, then yes, SMS is a very effective way of doing a right promotion. This was the insight starting from the data analytics. It has helped us in getting a good name in the organization. It has helped our organization in saving hordes of money and entirely improving the ecosystem around this particular process. Last example is slightly different. I have purposely chosen it as an example where this has to be used more as a continuous control monitor. Deepji in the introduction gave the example of one of the products which is called as CCM, continuous control monitor. I would like to take this example where it really helps as a continuous control monitor. Again, this is one of the industries that I have worked for, a refinery. The data we are talking of is a product pricing data. So let us look at the introduction quickly. A complex refinery, a petroleum refinery with a Nelson complexity index more than 9 or 10, with multiple secondary units. Those who have worked in the refining industry will understand what this means. For others, it's simply a complex industry is an industry which has, or a refinery which has more and more secondary units of refining, and it has the metallurgy in its construction, which can refine the toughest of the crudes to make the smoothest or the lightest of the products. In the simple man's language, this is a complex refinery. And typically, a very complex refinery will have a large product set because it will sweat the product to the last end and get more and more products out of it. So crude will be sweated to the last end and get more and more products out of that. Of course, we'll talk of gasoline and gas oil, petrol and diesel, which are the largest selling petrol products anywhere. Now, the petrol product pricing is a complex exercise. It has IPP, EPP parlances, import parity price or export parity price. It will have multiple components of pricing, which are also including taxes, logistics, and the final last mile pricing, whichever is the most suitable. Up till recently, petrol products were not in GST, so they were continuing the VAT excise model. So that complexity is added to that. And ultimately, again, in our first example, a large refinery with a 50 MTPA setup with, say, about 15-20 depots and 2,500 ROs, you see, will have on the pricing mechanism multiple prices running at the same time across states, across geography, across cities, across clusters, and the prices would vary in a very thin margin. Say, to give an example, today petrol is selling in Mumbai, say at 102.55 rupees. 102.55 rupees a liter is the petrol price in Mumbai. This price could be 102.35 somewhere, 101.95 somewhere, 103.45 somewhere. The price differential will be very small. What is the challenge? What is the problem? The problem is, for a live refinery which is clocking daily sales in millions of liters or thousands of kiloliters, this pricing is controlled through what is called as masters, price masters. We all understand. In the ERP system, those masters are maintained either in the ERP itself or in the softwares which sync with ERP. Those masters keep the prices defined as different codes for different geographies, taxation regimes, promotional activities, IPP, EPP, etc. There could be various variants of prices. They are all controlled by codes in masters. Now the problem is, who has access to these masters, and the people who have access to these masters, how do they approach the change in price in the masters? Because petrol product pricing is a very live and dynamic game. Sometimes the prices change every 2, 3, 4 days, sometimes once a week, sometimes once a fortnight, but never more than once a month. I mean, never more, I'll say, gap than more than a month. So these are very dynamic prices. That means somebody is changing those prices in the master, either through program or through manually. It's very important to keep tight controls on those masters. Otherwise, suppose I have an access to the master on a particular day, because everybody works from everywhere nowadays. I'm giving this lecture from my home and people are listening it from different nooks and corners of the world. From my home, I approach the master on a Saturday night at 11:55. And for 3 days, I change the price of a particular product by reducing it by 55 paise against a base of 102 rupees. I'll repeat. I'm changing the price by 55. I'm reducing the price by 55 paise against the base of 102. So the original price was 102.45. I have made it 101.95. Who will recognize this? Nobody. And after 3 days, I'm again going to set the price right to 105.45. Quietly, I have changed it once, made it down by 55 paise. Again, I have restored the price. Nobody has realized. But imagine, in those 3 days, whatever kilogallons or kiloliters I have sold, multiplied by 45 paise, that is the direct loss to my bottom line. I get emboldened by my first move. Next time I reduce the price by 2 rupees. Next time by 5 rupees. Somebody will definitely, because 5 rupees price differential, somebody will catch. But he'll catch it subsequently. What is the loss? Multiplied by the volume that I am selling. Now I have told you the problem. What's the solution? Because one solution is, you first control the access right to the masters very, very tightly. Find out the accesses, find out the access hierarchies, who has what access, his boss has what access, who the top man has what access, and then also find if there are some SOD conflicts, whether the segregation of duty conflicts are there. Somebody who is not supposed to have the access to the price, somebody who has the access to the raw material prices and final product prices, somebody has access to the logistics and prices, all that. I mean, there are complex models, GRCs, who throw out all the SOD conflicts. So look at the SOD conflicts also in this term. But my friends, all this is one way of fixing the problem. What has data analytics to do in this? The answer to that is, if I attach the continuous control monitor tool at my master level, and if on real-time basis, my prices flow through the tool and monitor all the changes in the prices happening before the official change has to happen. Am I clear? my official change has to happen, say every 3 days, but I suddenly see the price has changed even by 10 paise, 15 paise on the second day. This is not by design. This is by mischief or error or something else. But believe my friends, this is impossible to catch in a complex, large scenario with multi-products, multi-locations, multi-geographies in picture, unless you have a data analytics tool in the continuous control monitoring scenario mechanism, sitting on the live data and real time throwing you exceptions in prices. This is my last example. I wanted to give this and share this as a case study of data analytics in a real industry on a real time basis. I'm aware that I've taken a little longer than I was supposed to take, so I'll stop here. We will go to the next slide, which is question answer slide. And here I have a simple rule or a simple script. Ask me questions. If they are easy, I will answer. If they are difficult, please go and run the ideas. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Sachin. A wonderful, excellent presentation. You have aptly given one-liners and captured the essence of data analytics, for management, for internal auditors. And the case studies were rooted in the ground, because you could see that, it is, you are breathing them, you're living them, the case studies. So I think participants, any questions for Sachin today? And we could take those questions. I think I just have beautiful case studies, apt one-liners, but any questions and answers, questions for Sachin?
Before the questions also, I mean, anybody, I'm most welcome to ask questions, but whoever is asking the question or any participant, I would like to know whether this made sense, whether this was that. I mean, thank you so much for your candid this, but because unless this has lived with the essence of what the topic was, then probably I have not done justice to the time of so many people. So that feedback also I would like to know, either now or subsequently through,
Sure.
email, SMS, whatever, or you can always convey it to Deepji and the team at Sama, and they will always share it. But feedback is very important.
Absolutely, Sachin. Why don't you put up your email ID also on the screen? Why don't you type it out on the screen presentation, so that, if people want, participants want, they can write to you directly also.
Sure, I will.
They can write to us. They can write to us. We would direct it to you. We would answer them. Sachin would answer them in future. And right now, if you have any questions, please have a go, because Sachin is here and he can answer to you directly. Right. So we have his email ID, sachinaroskar@gmail.com. I think he's put it out to all of you. So I think, Sachin, there's no questions, which is great. But anything, his mobile number is there. I'll read it out to all of you. 9819 98. I'll repeat. 9819745904. So I think this is, I read it out because there are participants on YouTube also. So for their benefit, I've read out the mobile number. Sachin is kind enough to give his mobile to all of us. I think passionate internal auditor. I have one question from Vaibhav Doshi. Does Idea Tool require specialized skill for writing scripts? How difficult it is for a person who has not used analytical software other than Excel?
Well, I would answer it like this, that it is not very difficult, but I would definitely say you need a bent of mind of a programmer to write it. Yeah. So there are two ways to do this. One is you can use any of the resource that you have in your team who has that kind of a bent of mind, or you can use the resources of the service providers, like Sama, for example, have very good people who write the script for you. You have to define the business problem to them, and they will write the scripts for you. So you can outsource this work, or you can do it in-house, provided you have people who enjoy doing this. Your regular auditor may or may not have time to do it or enjoy it.
I think absolutely right, Sachin, because I think this question has been asked in a number of sessions, and I think there are no straight answers for it, because an auditor can be tuned to data analytics and have a flair for analytics and data, and observations and write scripts, or a non-auditor can write them and an auditor can use them, or you can do it in-house or you can outsource it. So there are multiple. We find that organizations across the country, they have multiple ways of attacking this problem. So some do it in-house, some outsource it, some the auditors themselves write it, some auditors are very good, some chief internal auditors write it, some junior people in the team write it. There's a central data cell. Sometimes it's every auditor has a license and they use it. So it's all as every department would like to take it forward, that sort of thing. So I think this question was also asked last time. There's one or two more questions. So thanks, Sama. I think Jyoti says for organizing this analytical Wednesday. It's really useful and helpful. So this is not a question, but thank you to you, Sachin.
Thank you so much. I also enjoyed presenting it as much as probably people have enjoyed listening to.
So I think Sachin, since there are no questions, you have given your email. We can then close in time. But from on behalf of Sama Audit Systems and Surface Private Limited, a very big thank you to all the participants and to Sachin, because he's taken a lot of effort, as I said in the beginning, to make this delivery to us, to make this presentation to us, so that we get this information in digital form. We get this information in a form which we understand and we can use it or think about it, how analytics can be used, how IDEA can be used in our operational areas in internal auditing. So I think that's from complex operational areas to very simple operational areas. So thank you very much once again, Sachin, to you for spending your valuable time.
Sorry, just before we close and just before we say thank you to all of us and goodbye, the question I had asked during this, Jairam, could you flag that poll? So
Sachin ji, there is some problem in the poll today on Zoom. I think you'll have to give the answer as the poll master.
So the sentence was basically, it would be a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. This sentence has been said by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the author of a very famous character called Sherlock Holmes. And so friends, data analytics is not only used in auditing, it is also used in detecting or detective areas, and it has been used for years together. Arthur Conan Doyle was from, as you all know, from last century, a century before last. He was from the 19th century. We are in the 21st century. So data analytics is not new. Only the tools have changed. Data analytics is as old as history. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sachin, for this. I was not aware of this particular aspect of, Arthur Conan Doyle, because though I am an avid reader, I read all his books and also watched all the serials. But, thank you very much for this. Thanks a lot, Sachin, for being with us.
Thank you so much. And all the best to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin, sir. Bye. Good night. Thank you.